Hello and welcome to
Hey, we like your pod.
And we're going to tell you why. Hi, it's Dawn here, joined as always by my trusted partner, Maddie P. Matt Pickett. And this week by our special guest, Kyle Fellows at Packer Pundit. Hey, Kyle, nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, you guys. This is a privilege. I'm excited to be on the show with you guys.
So, how was your week? Let's have your week in review so far. It's Thursday. It's a week after the big draft. Today's mini camp. So what's going on in your world?
Man, it's been a busy week. Last week I went to the draft in Kansas City, so that was a fun opportunity. I've never gone before, so I mean, been a draft fan as long as I can remember my whole life, but never went. So that was kind of a bucket list item for me. But I took some work time off last week. So then that means, coming back to, the list of things that you let slide last week when you're having a good time at the NFL draft. So that's been the week. And but it's going really well. It's crazy that the draft has come and gone now. And now we get to reflect a little bit on what actually happened.
So is that the first time you've been to the draft or?
Yeah, I've never been before. I should have gone when it was in Chicago. I mean, I'm not that far, just down the street, really around the lake there, but didn't. And so one of my best friends lives in Kansas City. So he said, why don't you fly out and we'll just make a week of it. So we hung out at his place on Thursday night. We figured like the first round would be crazy. And I guess like they're reporting like 312,000 people were like involved in some way, like over the course of the weekend. So Thursday was totally nuts, but we went down there on Friday and took in rounds 2 and 3. And then Saturday we went back down, and by Saturday, nobody cares. Right. So like we're like under the canopy, like 50 yards from the podium because no one's there to watch, rounds 4, 5, 6. So, but it was great to be there. A lot of fun. And really like you kind of wonder like how much are you going to be able to take in live, right? Like, because it's always been a TV experience. But it was amazing. Like they've the big, I guess the screens are up everywhere, so you can kind of tell, what it looks like on TV and hear everything. So a pretty cool experience to be there in person.
Nice. I'm like really happy for you they got to do that because like you're known as a person who's really into the draft. So like it's like Kyle got to go do the thing. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The week closed out actually like highlight of the week. I mean, spending time with my friends and just being at the draft was awesome. But I'm in the airport to fly home on Sunday morning. Like I got a cheap flight down and like, that's who I am. I'm going to get the cheap flight. Right. So I'm in the airport at 4 a.m. and I'm getting my breakfast burrito. I'm in line at this little Kansas City coffee shop. And I look up and I'm like, I'm 80% sure that that's Mel Kiper. Like, I'm pretty sure. But I've like, I've got to sit there. I've got to wait and get my burrito. So I'm not going to like fanboy all the way down there. Right. But I get my coffee, I get my burrito, and he heads down the B wing of the airport. So I'm like, okay, like there's like a bazillion gates here. Right. Like he could be anywhere. I'm like, I'm not going to go crazy, but I went around the corner and he's at the first gate. And I'm like, okay, now I'm like 90% sure that this is Mel Kiper. But I don't want to like embarrass myself, right? Like I don't want to like walk up to a random guy with bad hair and be like, "Hey, are you Mel Kiper?" and be wrong, right? So no, so I took my time and kind of figured out, okay, yeah, this is who this is, and I just said hello. We talked for a few minutes, and it was pretty cool. I got my picture taken with Kiper, and so I don't know, just a cool, as someone who's followed the draft my whole life, to meet the guy who really kind of got it started and made it what it is today was a pretty cool cherry on top to the whole experience.
That's amazing.
Very cool.
Wow.
So definitely Go ahead.
I say, Maddie, was your week that exciting? Did you
No,
meet
not remotely. No, I only met Ian Rappaport. That's all. So no, I had a good week. It's nothing too much to, especially compared to that, to report. I'm excited for tomorrow because this is one of those Fridays where a Marvel movie comes out, and my wife and I take the day off to go see it.
Neat.
So like the public school system gets to be the babysitter for the day while we go on a date. So I'm looking forward to that. But I do want to come back to this question later, Kyle, because I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. But I really want to know more about how you got into the draft and all that. Okay. So we'll get to that later, though. That's just a floating question at this point. So, Dawn, how was your week?
That's right. My week was great. I've been, for some reason, just super busy. Tosh got her second bug that she ate, threw up again. Here's the thing about my cat. She plays outside to get the bug, and then she brings it in to play with. And I know cats will do that. They're like going to bring you your present. Mm-hmm. But she tortures the bug. Like, she doesn't kill it. She plays with it.
No.
And then she eats it, and then she goes back outside to do, probably find another one. And then when it's time to throw up, because evidently that's what cats do after they eat a big bug, she has to come inside on my white wool carpet to do it. It's like, here. So that's my new thing. So we're trying something new over here in terms of no more nighttime prowling on the balcony. And so last night she was just meowing at the door, and I just spent a bunch of money on some toys that hopefully will keep her busy at night. It's like this track and you can get more and more pieces so you can make it really huge, which of course I will. And it's got balls inside, so they're clear tubes. And they go, and the balls light up. But they can't actually, and they can get their paws in there, but they can't actually get the ball out.
I want to play with that. I should get one for myself.
It looks really fun. It's actually really cool because there's also little Oasis setups for it. I'm not going to get all that because she pretty much has all those things, like a water fountain. But there's I did order the one. It's a cat massager, and so they lay on it and it massages them and kind of pets them and stuff. So I'm thinking
I want that too, actually.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. But she already has, there's one with a water fountain, and then you can get the grass growing, but she already has that. So I'm like, I can just throw that stuff in there if I want to. But so she's so spoiled that, So, and then I got her one of those, I don't know exactly what they're called. I think they're called like a muffle carpet. It's like a carpet with another carpet that has holes in it over it. But so they get under it in between the two, and then they pop their heads out of the holes, and you can put things in there and they go crazy. So we'll see. My whole apartment is like the cats. So
all right.
I was just ordering all that just before we got online. So that's my life right now.
Cat heaven. Good stuff.
There you go.
Cat heaven. So, okay. So you guys, how excited are we? Well, before we start our quick interview with Kyle, on a 1 to 10, how did we do with your favorite team, the Green Bay Packers, on draft night? Our draft weekend, how do you think they did? Kyle.
Is this for me? Okay.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about what the Packers were able to do. And I don't know how crazy you guys want to get, how far you want to get into this, but I thought the Packers went into this with a lot of needs. I think we kind of understand that the Packers are in a place where they're going to maybe not be rebuilding, but they're retooling the roster a little bit. And so you go in with a lot of needs. And I felt like they really nailed it. I loved what they were able to do. I think they came away with good value. I think they came away with good football players. And I think they fit this roster really well right now, but also will be pieces that grow. Assuming Jordan Love is the quarterback for the foreseeable future, that offense is going to be able to grow together for a long time. So from the high point view, I just really thought that they really nailed this draft. I'm excited about it.
Yeah. Totally agree. And I think that I like a lot about it is it feels like a draft not for competing in 2023, which is totally fine, but for being really grown into itself in 2024. Like, the tight end's always going to need some time to develop. It looks like Lucas Van Ness might be a little bit of a project. Some of the other guys later on, like, have the potential, like a really high ceiling. So it feels like we're gonna like spend a year not rebuilding, but just kind of regrowing, and I'm excited about that.
Absolutely. I think the Packers needed to come into this. Safety is a big position of need for the Packers, and I really love what they did, but I also love what they didn't do, right? Like, they didn't reach for need. For example, they could have taken a safety in the 3rd round, right? They already took the tight end, they already got the wide receiver, right? But that would have been a reach for a need, right? There just wasn't a lot of depth there at that safety position, so they didn't do it, and I love that. I love that they said, like, let's not pretend that there's a player that's going to be an impact starter here and take them. Let's take the best player available. And when they were on the clock there, like in the 3rd round, they've already taken Luke Musgrave. And for me, I'm just sitting there. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know who they're going to go with. The defensive tackles were kind of off the board. And for me, I'm like, the best players on the board are still the tight ends. We already have one. And they just went ahead and they took the next tight end. They were like, well, we'll just double up. Like, we'll be awesome and have 2 of those guys. So I thought that was a great approach. I just love getting the value there in Tucker Kraft. And I really thought Brian Gutekunst had a really smart way that he approached this draft.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd say 9 out of 10. Because you said how many out of 10, Don? So I'd say a 9, but I don't know what I would do to make it better. I mean, I feel like the parts that were like, Gutekunst was able to justify. Like, there was the run on the quarterback, so we felt like they had to take somebody in the 5th round, and they grabbed Clifford. What's his name? Something Clifford, right?
Yeah, the Penn State quarterback.
Yeah,
Sean Clifford. Yeah.
Sean, I was thinking Sam. It's not Sam. Big Red Clifford. So that was the one that was like, but then he kind of explained it later. I was like, okay, well, I guess that makes sense, actually.
Yeah, a little bit of a head scratcher there, and that was the one for me that, like, but I mean, in the grand scheme of things, the Packers selected 13 players, and I think that other people have probably said this better than I will, but like, if your biggest gripe with the draft class is the one backup quarterback that they took maybe a round or 2 early because they liked, what was between the ears more than, his physical attributes. Like, if that's your one gripe, I think you love the class. And for me, like, I think since Brian Gutekunst has taken over, like, he's had some really good drafts. And I mean, when you have 13 picks, it helps, right? Like, there's more players to feel like there's a chance that they hit. But this might be my favorite draft since 2018 when he took over. And I think that's what needed to happen, right? Like, there's people who are critical of Brian Gutekunst, and you can say rightfully so for some reasons. But if the Love pick hits and this class hits and what he does with next year's class hits because of all those assets he was able to acquire with the Aaron Rodgers trade, then I think we look back on Brian Gutekunst's legacy starting now with, like, okay, he had a pretty good plan in place, and it wasn't just this panic that they, kind of found themselves in when Aaron Rodgers wasn't going to be the quarterback anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And all the swings that he had at bat, with 13 players, that's a lot more than most teams. Because I mean, I live in Cincinnati, and I was talking to my father-in-law about the Bengals draft, kind of getting his feeling on it. He's like, well, these are the 7 guys we took. I was like, 7 guys? Come on.
Right. Well, and in most years, like, most NFL teams don't have room for 13 guys. Like, it's pointless to have that many picks. And I've made fun of the Minnesota Vikings for years because they come away with, 10, 11, 12, 15 guys in a draft class. And you're like, they can only roster 53. Like, it doesn't make sense to come away with that many young players when you know that you're going to cut some. Maybe they make your practice squad, like, trade up and get value higher in the draft. But that's not where the Packers are. The Packers are right now in a place where they have to fill out the depth of this roster. They have to get younger. So to me, it makes a ton of sense the way that they did it. The other thing I would just say, I love that Brian Gutekunst did sway from some of his tendencies. Like, we know that this is a big RAS team, right? They love elite athletes. But honestly, like, they took a player like Jaden Reed in the 2nd round who was not on my radar at all because I kind of skipped him, honestly. Like, I watched him and I just kind of moved on. I was like, oh, I mean, he's a good player, but, like, he's never going to wear green and gold. He's just not that freak athlete, right? And so you love seeing, obviously we have to see if Jalen Reed actually becomes a good player, but you like the fact that the organization identified someone they thought was going to be a really good player, and they thought that maybe the boundaries that they had set with the thresholds were just getting in the way of acquiring that good football player, and they threw him out the window. So I think that that's something you'd like to see as an evolution of this organization, to say we're not going to pass on good players just because they don't fit in the box that we've so neatly organized for ourselves.
Yes, the evolution of the organization. Well said. And
I like that. I like that. I feel maybe just a hunch that Rich Bisaccia had something to do with that pick. Right?
Really? Well, I
Right?
mean, he does have those return skills, right? Like,
Right.
obviously, we feel really good about Keyshawn Nixon back there right now. I think that's like everybody's pretty excited about him being back. But yeah, I mean, that maybe, there's some fingerprints there. Maybe that would be something that maybe pushed them over the edge to take a player like Reed.
I feel like Bisaccia is definitely has some sway at that organization, as he should. It's not just all the head coach making all these decisions.
Yeah.
So.
I tweeted something out a couple of weeks before the draft. I don't know if you guys saw this, but I thought it was really interesting that Jaden Reed started his college career at Western Michigan University before he transferred to Michigan State. The coach there at the time, who I'm blanking on the name of right now, and I'm going to need to remember before I get on with Andrew in a little while here because we're going to talk about it. But he was the head coach at Western Michigan, was just hired by the Green Bay Packers as a senior assistant this spring. So the coach that started with Jaden Reed knows him incredibly well from Western. So you kind of wonder if maybe that was one more voice in the ear of Matt LaFleur, who was actually a teammate of this coach back in the day when they were together at Western. So a lot of connections there. You know how that works. Like somebody has something good to say about somebody, and that kind of rings in your ear when you go to make the selection.
Yeah, totally. Oh.
Exactly. And in the chat, a quick hello to Lorenzo and Brian. Brian Maffey says Reed actually fits Green Bay's thresholds outside of the arm length and a couple of pounds. He's a little short though, isn't he?
I appreciate Brian showing up just to make sure we get that right.
Yes, Brian. He knows what he's doing.
What's up, Brian? How you doing, buddy?
So, okay. And then getting the kicker too. I'm excited about the quarterback as a potential backup too from Penn State.
Yeah,
but I don't know that much about him yet.
Well, and he's from Cincinnati. He went to like the one of the top private schools, St. X. That my like all of the men on my wife's side of the family all graduated from. So they're like, "Oh, St. X guy," and they're all excited about him. I'm like,
that's cool.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So as far as your experience there, so were you there like super early? Did you get tickets? How does that work? And you went for all 3 days?
No, we skipped Thursday because we just thought there'd be way too many people down there. We were kind of, we love the draft. So we were actually kind of worried that we may not be able to kind of know what's going on. Like if we weren't like in front of our TVs. And I don't know. I think we would have been able to do okay between having your phone with you, and following Twitter and everything. But you would have been so far from the stage, it would have been very different. But yeah, we went down there Friday and Saturday, and great experience. The NFL does it right. Like it's crazy. They make it a family experience. There's stuff for the kids to do. There's food set up. They've got like a crazy band that plays between the picks when you're trying to like know what's going on. It's just really loud music, but they do a great job with it. You can pay for tickets if you want to be like down in the trenches there, but it's significant. So like we're like we're not those people, right? We're a little bit further back than that.
You didn't need to do that. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
that's fantastic. I would like to do that sometime. I thought about it. It was in Vegas, wasn't it, last year?
Yeah.
Because that's close to me. That's drivable.
Okay, yeah.
But
it's in Detroit next time, right?
Yeah, so it's gonna be close to me again. So I think we're gonna flip it, and I think my friend from Kansas City is gonna come up to Detroit, and we'll probably make a weekend of it again next year. It was a good time.
Nice.
Very cool. I was concerned, or I am concerned about our O-line, and all I heard Gutekunst say is that there weren't players when they needed them. Like they were all way up front, and then so they just sort of moved out. Was it Gutekunst who said it, or was it Mike and Weston? Michael and Weston.
Michael and Weston.
I can't remember who said it, but I kind of just listened to all of their stuff on replay a couple times just to kind of get it all, stuck in my head, who's who and who's what. But now it's not. Now it's all mushed up anyway.
That happens.
But I was concerned. I thought we wanted like an offensive tackle, like an O-line person, didn't we?
Well, it's funny. Like we do this draft process. I don't know. Like maybe I'd have to go back and think about like when Ted Thompson was running the show. But like it feels like since Brian Gutekunst has stepped in, like every year we do this. Like what offensive tackle are the Packers going to take in the first round? And there's always a list. I'm trying to think. There was the guy that the Eagles took a few years ago that everybody was convinced that the Packers are going to take. We did the the guy, I'm blanking on the names, but the guy that the Bears took last year or the year before, who became I think a guard for them. But there's always a list of these players that we're convinced that are going to be the Packers pick at offensive tackle, and the Packers just don't take them in the first round. And maybe that's coincidence, but it also like could be that the Packers just have had all this luck with getting offensive linemen later in the draft that they just won't do it. So I think that's becoming a trend. I think it's interesting to watch. Like obviously they took Elton Jenkins in the second. He's, someone that I think they intended to play guard from the beginning, and then he kind of surprised them with some flexibility to be someone who could play outside as well. But I don't know, just an interesting trend to watch. But honestly, I feel pretty good about the offensive line. The Packers are lucky to have one of the better lines in the NFL. It's not a perfect unit, but when you compare it to other teams in the NFL and what they're trotting out there on Sunday afternoons, it's a really, really good unit. Bakhtiari is back. He's still one of the best left tackles in the game. I mean, you have to, assume that he's going to be available, but I mean, if he is, that's the truth, right? So Josh Nijman has proved to be a reliable starter at a minimum. Zach Tom showed that he can play tackle, which is amazing as a rookie, right? He just kind of went out there, and you weren't nervous when he had to play tackle last year, and that's a big deal, right? Of course, I mentioned Elton Jenkins. He's a stud at guard. He can play tackle if you need him to. He can play better tackle than probably half the tackles in the NFL, for being honest. So maybe you'd like to upgrade right guard, right? John Runyan Jr. has been solid there. Maybe you'd like to upgrade center, but Josh Myers is just entering his third year. He was a day 2 pick. So they're going to kind of let that play out and see if he grows. In my opinion, the offensive line should be good enough for the Packers offense to find success this season. I felt like it was a little bit more important for them to add weapons to the offense than to spend more resources on the offensive line. And obviously we saw them do that.
They did do that.
Yeah, it's clear that the Packers felt the same way. It's almost unbelievable that in a draft class with 13 picks, though, they didn't select a single offensive lineman. That's kind of crazy. Maybe that's by design. Maybe it is coincidental, but I would guess it does tell us a lot about what they think of the offensive line and really the depth that they probably have there.
Yeah. Okay, I feel better. Maddie.
All right, excellent.
Good.
Online therapy.
My therapy
That's
session.
right. Yes. How do you feel?
Well, let's get to our question. Did I interrupt you, Maddie? Or are you okay?
No, I think I was going to say, well, let's get to the questions. So
yeah, let's get to
we have Kyle for like 9 more minutes, so we need to make sure we get the questions.
Let's get to it. So for those of you listening, we would like our audience to get to know you as well as ourselves tonight a little bit better. So we always start with our guests' Twitter. So Kyle Fellows at Packer_pundit, co-host on at Pack a Day podcast, which is how we know you and love you. And Kyle says, I think about the Green Bay Packers a lot and NFL draft nuts. So of course, our first question is super important. Just how much do you think about the Green Bay Packers? And I think we've already kind of covered how excited you are about this year's draft. So how much are you thinking about them? Is it a healthy process?
No, it's not healthy. It's way beyond that. Yeah, I mean, I say that as a joke, obviously, but like, I mean, it's just one of those things that like has become an obsession for me. It's an interest that, I acquired at a young age, and it kind of grew to a place where it became, an interest that became a hobby. And then I think I created a Twitter in 2012, 2013. And I think, the Packer Pundit, like, handle was kind of a joke, honestly. Like, just, I thought maybe I'd throw out some takes and, just as a way, Twitter, I felt like it was a great space for you to learn more about your team, especially in the off season, right? When maybe people at that time weren't writing about it as thoroughly as like I felt like, could be. So that was kind of my intention. And then, just things kind of evolved from there. I started, I think in 2014, writing for Lombardi Ave a little bit, and hooked up with a friend of mine, Dan Dahlke, and we did some projects together. And along the road, I guess I eventually started doing some just interviews here and there. And man, I'm blanking on the name. Railbird Central with Brian Caribou actually was one of my first opportunities just to get on and record an interview podcast about the Packers and what they were doing in the off season. And then a few years later, Andy Herman put out a thing. It was like, hey, if you're interested in doing this, like, more regularly and you've got some experience, let me know. And so I sent him the Brian Caribou interview, and the rest is history. And now it's a lot of fun to be a part of the Pack-A-Day podcast on a regular basis. But it's funny, like, I mean, it just started as fandom as a kid, and it just grew into something that I get to do every week.
I love it.
That's so awesome. And of course, for people who don't know, you're on the Friday crew with Andrew Mertig, and also currently with Maggie Loney. Hopefully, she's able to stick around with the two of you, because she certainly classes up the joint. So.
Absolutely, that's her job for sure.
Yeah, that's one of our favorite. We probably both, Matt and I, listen every day to Pack-A-Day, but we tend to have our favorite days, don't we, Matt? Like, I love Friday nights with you and Andrew, and now, as you said, Maggie, and then we have our Wednesday crew, and okay. So, any other thoughts before we go on to our next pressing question, to get to know you a little better? Any other final things you want to add about this that you loved about this draft class this year?
No, I'm just nervous about what your next question is going to be, because I don't know. So this could take us anywhere. So
I'm a real Barbara Walters over here.
I'm about to get grilled.
If you were a tree, what kind of tree would you like?
Look, what interview did I sign up for here? What are we doing here? I'm sure there's a Wisconsin answer. Does Wisconsin have a state tree? Is that a thing?
They must.
They probably do.
I'll look in the background while you're asking the question.
Have our producers pull that up. There we go.
Okay. How did you become, Kyle? How did you become a Packers fan, and who had the most influence on your fandom? Because you don't live in Wisconsin, do you?
No, I live in Michigan currently. I've lived in Michigan most of my life. I spent a little bit of time in St. Louis, but back in Michigan now. And so growing up, I mean, like, the Lions are the state team, right? So, like, the Lions were terrible when I was a kid. So, like, this was, I mean, we had Barry Sanders, so there was like some of that, but like really it was a struggle. So it was easy for me to kind of bounce around the league. So I was like, this is between like age 4 and 7. So give me some grace. Yeah, thank you. But I was a Buffalo Bills fan for a while. I had a short stint with the Dallas Cowboys, and I repented of that in my past. I'm trying to think. Oh, that was a big, actually, when the Jacksonville Jaguars came around, I kind of jumped on that bandwagon for a while. I was a big Mark Brunell fan. I didn't realize like there was some heavy Green Bay history with Mark Brunell, but eventually, I landed with the Packers. My neighbor was a cheesehead. He was a big Packer fan, and he actually gave me a physical cheesehead. And so to me, as like a 7-year-old kid, like that was the coolest thing in the world. Like a hat that's a piece of cheese, like that was incredible. So that kind of won me over, right? And honestly, around that time in my life, like, was when the Packers were amazing. I mean, the 90s were good for them. And then so I think that was right around the time that they won the Super Bowl against the Patriots. So I kind of jumped in the fair weather fandom there. But my actual first memory of a Packers moment is them losing the Super Bowl to John Elway and the Broncos. And I can like remember my dad explaining to me that like all John Elway has to do now is like kneel the ball because we can't get the ball back. And like as a kid, like not understanding like how that works, like that's not fair. Like I remember like just feeling like the devastation of realizing that they were going to lose the Super Bowl. So that's my first memory. But yeah, like I said, just from there, it just kind of grew into an obsession. And no one else in my family follows football like the way that I do. So I don't know where I really acquired it from, but it's just kind of become this part of me that I can't shake. So love it.
That's awesome. So when you're watching that Super Bowl that you remember with your dad, like, was your dad a Lions fan at the time, or?
No. So actually, my dad was kind of like a Steelers Broncos fan, like historically, but he kind of like, it wasn't anything that like he really like was, super into at the time. So for him, it was easy for him. He's kind of joined me in my Packers fandom a little bit just to support what I do.
Good for him.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, then how did you become a draft expert? Because we think you're a draft expert over here. So just so you know, you are an expert in our opinion.
Well, expert is definitely that's a strong way of putting things, I would say, for sure. But that's really kind of you guys. I think the part of the draft that's so interesting to me is just how much you learn every year as you go through it. You're constantly learning and realizing exactly how much you don't know, right? Like I have players looking back. I mean, the hit rate on, NFL prospects in general is not crazy as it is, but like players like DK Metcalf, like I did not like DK Metcalf coming out. I just thought he was really stiff. I just thought that there were things about him that I felt like people were like putting him up on this pedestal because he was so unique as a prospect, because he was so big, and like, we saw the muscle pictures, and I just kind of wrote him off as like kind of a draft phenomenon or like a draft process phenomenon, and not like what was going to be like an actually good NFL wide receiver. And obviously that was wrong. Like, and Andrew Mertzig holds that over my head on at least a monthly basis. The Metcalf thing comes off. But I guess for me, I just love the risk analysis piece of it. I like learning the backgrounds of all the players on a personal level. That's kind of one thing I feel like is kind of unique to me. I love adding in at least one, maybe two interviews of a player, whether that's usually like I like to find something that's from like a post-game interview, because you can kind of tell what's a player like after they win, what's a player like after they lose. And then I like to take in like a combine interview when they know, like they're being put on the stage and everyone's kind of paying attention. But I think you can learn a lot about a person and also why they play the game from like watching those interviews. So I really enjoy putting that kind of into the process for me. But just so much goes into the draft prospects, like, and really like their success and the potential of finding success, right? Like the landing spot matters a ton. The coaching they get matters so much. Opportunity, it all factors into whether or not these guys are going to hit in the NFL. And even the best draft experts in the community will tell you, if they're honest, that it's not a perfect science. It's a really fun process, and we learn a lot as we go. But if you can bat over 500, like you're doing pretty well in a lot of ways. But it's just a fun way to learn a lot about the NFL and a lot about the league.
Very cool. Yeah, absolutely.
I heard somewhere that it's like a batting average of about 300 if you're if you're
really good.
Doing okay. Yeah.
I mean, the early rounds are obviously a lot better than the later rounds. Andrew and I did a really cool conversation about like where do you guys may have heard this, but like where do you find, like if you're looking for the next all pro, like where are you going to find them? And it was really interesting to look at like, the later rounds in the draft matter. They help you fill out your roster and depth. But honestly, like if you're looking for like high end players, you got to take them early. And like even at that rate, like if you're talking about first round picks, I mean, half of the first round busts. So like it's just really an interesting process to see how these guys who are incredibly talented. It's not that these guys aren't talented. It's just what is it that makes one guy bust and another guy, have a Hall of Fame career. It's just that's the part of it that I think keeps us coming back every year to like try to figure out who's the next great NFL player. It's fun.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, Kyle, it's like 8 till. I know you said you had to bounce at like 10 till. So you need to go?
You guys got any more questions for me? I'm good for about 2 more minutes here.
I'm gonna do our final question with you. By the way, Brian says he didn't like Metcalf either, so hopefully that
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate the support. That's good.
Well, and this is a great way to wrap up our interview. How do you manage your time? You do provide a lot of excellent content for our Packer community on Twitter and around other social media sources. And who is your biggest support system? How do you get all this done? And we know you have 2 little kids and a life and a job. And also, if you want to add in there, if your dream job is to become a scout someday or become part of the draft process, if you would do that, if you had the chance.
Man, that would be an incredible opportunity that I don't anticipate ever happens. But yeah, I mean, that would be a ton of fun. I just think to be a part of that process would be so interesting. And yeah, just to be a part of those decisions. And for me, honestly, like I was mentioning earlier, just the part of the scouting that's like digging into the players. You know that there's those scouts that like figure out like who are these players, what makes them tick, like what's the person that makes up the player. I think to be that would be really cool in an organization, just to lead that charge of like kind of digging underneath the players a little bit. That'd be a lot of fun, but I don't have any illusions that that's probably on the horizon. I appreciate you asking the question. As far as my support system though, I mean, like I'm just lucky to be a part of Pack-A-Day, honestly. To be a part of what Maggie and Andrew put together every week is a lot of fun. And Andrew and I have done this since, I don't know, 2017, I think. And honestly, when we got together, like I said, Andrew Herman reached out and said, hey, like, do you want to be a part of this? And he paired us together just kind of like by chance. And it just happens that Andrew and I really clicked and we kind of really become good friends and just shared a lot over the years, even personally, things that we've gone through and stuff. So it's funny, like the Packers community is about sports, but it's also about people. And so I think that that's been really cool to be a part of that team and just the way that we've supported each other and the way that Pack-A-Day has really just kind of come from this, you know, hey, let's try this and see what happens. Is there enough interest of people who would listen to a daily podcast about the Green Bay Packers to getting a resounding yes to that question? And really just being a part of that has just been phenomenal and just a blessing to take in. So I got to give a shout out to all those guys for letting me do that, but then also just, you know, of course, Maggie and Andrew who are there every week.
That's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Well, we're so glad you're part of the Pack-A-Day community and the Twitter community, Packers Twitter, as it were, NFL Twitter. And we're so glad we got to know you a little bit better today. Any final thoughts, Matt? Any final thoughts, Andrew, before you take off? I hope your little boy gets better.
I just want to say real fast, Kyle, before I take off, just real quickly, one of my favorite things about the week, you know, of podcasts as I listen to them, one of my favorite moments every week is listening to the very beginning of the Pack-A-Day Friday, because you go, welcome back. And it's a very specific thing you do that like every time it gets me every time. I'm like, yes, it's Friday.
Oh, that's funny.
Got the welcome back.
I'm so glad. That's awesome. We wrote, I don't know, Andrew and I worked together, like I said, since 2017. And I remember there was like one week where we like, for whatever reason, we had to rewrite the intro. Like, I don't know if it was because maybe we were stacking in sponsors or there was some reason that we needed to change the way we did it. So we typed it up. I did it once. And then I think someone said that they liked it, like in the, you know, the Slack or something. And then we just left it and it stayed that way. So thanks, Matt. I appreciate that.
We love it. We love it. Well, you have a great evening. It was super nice to meet you, and you're welcome back another time if you'd like to join us.
Well, thanks so much for having me, you guys. It's been a lot of fun, and it's fun to meet you guys. We appreciate your interaction on Twitter. You know, just it's fun to know that you guys listen, but then also the feedback that we get from you guys on Twitter as well. So thanks for letting me be a part of the show today, and just appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
So good to meet you.
Have a good night. Bye.
See you.
Oh, we love our people. We love our people.
We love our people.
We got the best people.
We do.
Our community is so great.
True.
It's true. Well, I'm glad. I am so excited about this draft. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's just, I had to stop listening to stuff though, because I'm just like, want to see football now.
Well, it's crazy too, right? Because like leading into this week, of course, everything was ratcheting up for the draft. Yeah. But like as soon as the draft hits, it's a fire hose of content happening.
Yes.
And it's like, how do I get through all this? How do I digest it? How do I bring it all in? You know?
Right.
And then fortunately, like, you know, months to like really absorb it, but that initial blast of it is crazy.
It is, especially with 13 picks. I mean, if it were 7, maybe it's a little easier, but And then we have we already are counting on about 11 already for next year. Did you know that?
How do you mean?
Well, the 7.
Like 11 picks for next year, do you mean?
Yes, already.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's to say nothing of the UDFAs. That's a whole nother.
Exactly.
Well, however many they picked up, like 11 or 12 or 13 or
12
those
or
guys. So
12 plus the 1, or 11 plus the 1. Yeah. So it's fun. It's fun stuff. I'm looking forward to just now. Well, they've got rookie camp started today, the mini rookie camp. And I mean, it's just, time flies. And Matt LaFleur, Coach LaFleur, is like, well, it's a long time before we'll actually play and see all, this all come together. And it's like, no, it's not. It's like, what, 4 months? Isn't it? Not even.
Oh my God.
3 months.
It's like 3 months till preseason.
3 months.
What?
It's crazy.
It does fly, right? Don, do you have a draft, a new person from our draft class who you're particularly excited about, or?
Well, I love that we have 2 tight ends. I just think that's nifty.
It is nifty. I agree.
I'm excited about the edge rusher because, Luke Van Ness, right? Just because of the film they showed, how he just like mowed all those people down. I mean, a good edge rusher. I'm glad the O-line is okay, but I did hear that they wanted somebody on the O-line, but it just wasn't who they wanted when it was their turn, type of thing.
Yeah.
So, so I was just a little worried about that and wondered if they were going to pick, but they have the undrafted free agents that they can beef up the O-line if they need to, or get some depth or whatever they need. So, I mean, we do have to start thinking about Bakhtiari retiring in a couple. I mean, I'm guessing in a couple of years, right? I don't know. I mean, I hope he never does, but
yeah, right.
So, what about you? Who is your fave?
Yeah, I mean, definitely I get more excited about the players on offense. I would say that when Jaden Reed was picked, I was like, I don't actually know who that is. And I'm not like, a super big draft guy like Brian Maffey, for example.
Right.
But so I was like really kind of like whelmed by that one. But when I started looking into the highlights people were posting and like the articles people were writing, the podcast people were doing where they're talking about it, I was like, oh my God, he kind of sounds awesome. Like this might be really exciting. So the tight ends, I think, are both going to be like really high upside, but this wide receiver, Jaden Reed, I'm really excited to see what he can do. So that for me right now, that's the one I'm kind of like, and partially too because as you know, Don, as many people out there on Packers Twitter know, I was very excited for Jackson Smith and Jigba, and so of course obviously we didn't take him, but reading some of the reports, some of the stuff about Jaden Reed, it sounds like he's sort of like a not super dissimilar from JSN, has a lot of similar traits. And I mean, I hate this phrase, but I've seen people describe him as like a poor man's, JSN. It's like, okay, well, like I understand what you're saying with that, but like, yeah, so somebody has a similar kind of like set of skills and could be used similarly in an offense, like that's exciting. So yeah, I'm jazzed about that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really think I would have fainted, I think, if they took a wide receiver in the first round.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it was possible. It would have been hilarious. I would have laughed so hard because you know why.
Yeah.
But that would have just been precious. I'm sure it was tempting. But I wasn't surprised. Do you think they would have taken him? He got taken right before, like on 13, didn't he?
I mean, we were picking at 13.
No, we were 13, so maybe 11 he got taken. He was up there.
JSN, no, we could have gotten him. He was still on the board.
He was still up there.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, he was. I can't remember what number he was picked at, and maybe Brian will throw it in the chat here. But I want to say he's picked at like 17 or 18 or 20, somewhere in the late teens, I think. So.
Oh, he did. Okay, because I kept thinking he was there, and we didn't take him. And then I kind of forgot about that. And then I was like, well, maybe he wasn't there. And I never went back to look.
He was.
Because it's over. It's like, it's over.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It just keeps moving. There it is. Brian says he went at 20. Yeah.
He went at 20.
That was one of the numbers I said. So.
Yes, because I do remember briefly there was some talk about, okay, they'll take the edge rusher and then maybe, the pass rusher, and then maybe they'll trade up to get him. Okay, they could have done that.
Yeah.
They could have done that with all those picks.
Gutekunst was all about accumulating picks. So
he sure was. He was like as many picks as possible. Yes, he did go to Seattle. JSN at 20 to Seattle, according to our resident expert, Brian Murphy.
which has helped me to like reignite my hatred for the Seahawks, which had really like kind of gone dormant, especially once Russell Wilson, went to the Broncos. I was like, okay, maybe I don't have to hate the Seahawks. Like our rivalry with them kind of, had run its course. And then they got JSN. I was like, man, I hate the Seahawks. It's fresh.
I don't hate Pete Carroll like some people do. I kind of respect Pete Carroll. I don't. I didn't see him chewing the gum as much, so that it didn't bother me as much last year.
Sure.
But I like him kind of. I think he's kind of cool, quirky. He
is. Yeah. No. I mean, he's a brilliant football mind, and he's had an amazing career, in college and in the NFL. I've actually read some of his writing in the last year or so. I've been like, you know what? Maybe I was selling him short because of his antics on the sideline. But,
right.
No, I mean, I got to say, I've built more of a respect for him for sure.
He's clearly a really high energy, high strung guy. No doubt.
That's probably safe to say. Yeah.
Lots of energy. Yeah. Okay, Maddie. What else? Are you so? I mean, it was kind of disappointing to get a pass rusher in the first round, though. I was like, okay, well, that's nice. But it is good to have a good pass. It's good to have a good pass rusher.
Yeah, he seems like a good player. Seems like a good dude. I don't know if he's a good dude. I don't know, but it seems like a good player for sure. I think a really good, acquisition, if you will, for the Packers. But yeah, it's not like the sexy pick. It's not like Jason or something. So
he's from Bears country.
That's right. Yeah,
that makes me nervous.
I think is he the guy who went to the same high school as Robert Mays? I think he might be, if I remember correctly.
Could be. He's the one that's dating one of the Bears players' sisters. Yeah, and then he has a handsy father, evidently.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Oh, that's so weird.
Oh man, old guys. I don't know. So anyhow. Yeah, I think that's all the draft takes I've got. Dawn, do you have any other draft takes before we move on to like superlatives?
Nope. I have one superlative. You want to hear it?
Yeah, go for it. You're first. Go for it.
What you said. I mean, I thought to keep it short because I knew Kyle was going to be on too, and I had a million more questions for him, but we got the important ones in. Because it was just so much, I got so excited, I had to turn stuff off. Like, I actually tend to be more like Pete Carroll, like super, way too much energy. And it was just like, but during the week, so this is my superlative, it's so dumb. During the week, I'd say 3 times until I couldn't take it anymore because I got too excited. And it's just like, when's football starting? I put on, let me just look here exactly what it is. If you go to Green Bay Packers on YouTube, the Green Bay Packers official YouTube channel. What is going on here? Oh, okay. Sorry, scrolling. I lost it. Okay. You go to Green Bay Packers and then you look at their playlists. And they have a playlist, 2023 NFL Draft. And then you just click play all. It's like, all, every single play, like everything they had have on them, including their interviews and stuff. So it's really a great way to just be like, okay, now I know who these people are. Yeah. So that's what
So I was gonna say, hearing those initial interviews with the media that they did, like on, like after they were drafted, those are so fun. I love that.
Like, so fun.
Especially there's that like kind of like famous moment now with Tucker Kraft at the end of his call. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. What did he do? What did he say?
So I can't remember the one's name, but the one who does like PR for the Packers and who like leads those like Zoom or phone call things, says something like thank you, sir, to her, and said, I'm sorry, I meant thank you, ma'am. I've had a few drinks while I was waiting for my name to be called in the draft. So that guy, he sounded buzzed during his interview too. Like I was like, this guy's had a little bit to drink. Not like he was slurring his words, but just like he was like, he's just talking. He's just going. So
wow.
I love that one.
pick up on that. I saw people talking about that, tweeting about it, but I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah.
That's funny. Well, wouldn't you? I mean, gosh. Maybe wait until you're done with your interviews.
Yeah, that's not cool because I mean, if you saw like the footage from his draft party, it was like in a machine shop, and it's just like a bunch of people with like red Solo cups and there's like kegs of beer. I'm sure like they were having a party. They're having a good old upper Midwest party.
Right.
I think they're in South Dakota, if I remember correctly. And how do you not? Have a few Solo cups full of beer before, because you're there with your friends and like you're excited about the prospect of being called and probably a little nervous too. So maybe that takes some of the edge
That's
off.
what I'm thinking. Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense. What do you think about the kicker? We've got the Carlson brother, the young brother.
I don't know. I there's some good arguments for why he has a lot of upside, but his production wasn't good. I mean, he was like injured. So like the idea I think is if he recovers from the injury well, if he shows that he's still got a lot, in him, he could be really good. But if you are in production, it looks a little, I'm nervous.
Yeah. How did he hurt that leg? Because it was this non-kicking leg. Was it a football injury?
I want to say that it was like just some dumb thing where he was like going for a kick and like stubbed his, or like, like his just caught his leg and it was like one of those dumb non-contact, soft tissue injury kind of things. Or something like that. It was like kind of thing where you hear the story like that. Oh, that sucks. That's such like a nothing,
Right. Well, okay. So he's another one that I think Bisaccia had some sway with.
Yeah.
Did you hear the background on that?
I feel like Bisaccia had to sway with a lot of these, a lot of like special teams or like, have done things on special teams. I felt like, the shadow master of the draft this year was Rich Bisaccia pulling the strings,
I think he had some say. And I didn't realize he was, but so he helped develop Tucker Carlson is the other, and so this is his brother.
Is that his name? Tucker Carlson?
Is it Tucker? No, not Tucker Carlson.
I don't think that's what it is. Is
the other Carlson brother kicker?
Carlson? What is
really
it?
Good.
Oh man, this is when we need Brian to be our producer, actually, to like stand by to answer the things that we can't think of. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah, Brian, where are we? But I didn't realize though but Bisaccia is now the assistant head coach.
Yeah, he got promoted. I mean, he's still the special teams coordinator.
Okay.
But also, promotion. Good for him. He's a good person to have in the organization. I'm glad we have him. I'm glad we didn't lose him,
Right.
So give that man a promotion. Keep him around. Absolutely.
Well, yeah, and he stepped up as coach for the Raiders when John Gruden got fired, and he did really well.
Yeah.
And why they didn't keep him there in
their loss,
look what
our gain.
Yeah, definitely our gain. Cole Kmet's sister, right, is who's dating our pass rusher. Yeah, that worries me. It's like, does he really like the Bears? Is he going to not do well when we play the Bears?
No, that's not how that works at all. No,
I don't know. How wouldn't it work?
I mean, they want to look good for the team they're playing for, because that's how they get second contracts, and that's how they, keep their career sustained. If I were in that position, if I were a football player and I got drafted by the Bears tomorrow, I'd be like, let's go Bears, let's do this, and then when I retire, maybe I might be like, okay, I can be a Packers fan again. But
right.
Fully committed. These guys are serious. They're serious athletes. So
no. Yeah. Daniel Carlson, not Tucker. I can't believe I said Tucker Carlson. Oh, get that name on my mouth. Sorry. It's because he's been in the news a lot.
Yeah.
Tucker. Well, because there's another kicker called Tucker too. Brian. What's the other Brian, you might as well just come on the screen. Anyway, Tucker, I think he's for the Rams. He's the kicker for the Rams. But I mean, I love our Mason Money Mason, but he might want to retire someday too. So
there is that.
Yeah.
Anything of Justin Tucker? So you're thinking of?
Yes.
Oh yeah. For the Ravens, he's amazing. He's like one of the best ones. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. So I had
for Baltimore. There it is. Brian hits us with for Baltimore.
Yep. Yes. Thank you.
Exactly.
Okay.
Cool.
What kind of superlatives do you have? I mean, I listen to more content than that, obviously, but
because there's so much, of course.
There's just yeah, of course, everything that Andy Herman did, and he had Ben Fennell on, and then he had So, but I'm on overwhelm this week. Mm-hmm.
I'm with you right there. I know when I
In a good way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's
wonderful
an embarrassment
way.
of riches. It's like swimming
Yes.
in Scrooge McDuck, gold coins is what it's like. So, um, and that's the thing, right? When there's that much, it was actually really hard for me to pick superlatives. I had to sit down and like just kind of go through stuff and be like, what were the things that kind of stood out? Because I feel like if I were to be like best, player profiles, like I don't know, there's like 15 different, like, well, that's an exaggeration, but like at least like 8 different writers or podcasts I could like shout out, and I can't say that any of those were better than the others because they're all really good, So it's like I don't feel right going that way, like saying best draft breakdowns Andy Herman, because it's like, well, he wasn't the only one, and they were all doing really good work,
Right.
So trying to like cut through all of that to find the things that that I can point to. I actually have 3 things that I really enjoyed from this week that weren't just straight up like draft content, basically.
Nice.
So the first one, Don. First one is best thread. So Eric Peterson is one of those really, really funny people out there in the Packers Twitter. Eric Peterson did a thread that was Packers rookie class as cheeses. So of course, I think this is inspired by like Colby Wooden and Tucker Kraft. So starting with those, definitely, but then he found like a different cheese that, for all them, they worked really well, like that really matched with the player, whether it was like the name or kind of like the outfit, like in the picture, like from their uniform, fit with like the coloring of the packaging of the cheese. It was very funny. It really got me. It's one of those things, of course, as always, the links to all the things will be in our show notes. So you got to check it out because it's really like, it's visual humor, of course. But one of the things that I really appreciated too about that is Eric used Jarlsberg for Carl Brooks. Is it Carl Brooks? I think it is, right? And I appreciate that because when they drafted Carl Brooks, I had like put up a Twitter poll that got like 11 votes or whatever. Put up a Twitter poll that was like, okay, keeping with like the cheese theme of the different Packers players, we're gonna have to rename this guy. What's the best one? Should it be Carl Jarlsberg, Jarlsberg Brooks, or Jarlsberg? And the last one won. I thought that was kind of surprising because I'm just going to call the guy Carl Jarlsberg from here on out. And anyhow, Eric happened to choose Jarlsberg. I'm just swallowing that word tonight. Jarlsberg.
Well, you're saying it so many times.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just like
you can say it once or twice, but then you start saying it over and over again.
Just you can slip on it.
Yeah.
So he chose Jarlsberg for Carl. So I liked that. But anyhow, that was hilarious. That definitely some good work there from Eric Peterson. All right. So do you see that thread, Don?
I didn't, but I am going to.
That
sounds hilarious.
Fun little romp there. So next I have best next thing. And what I mean here is that, we've talked before that the way how I see a lot of the stuff, a lot of the content that's out there is it's like people trying to guess or, predict what's going to happen. Like a lot of the content we listen to is like game previews because we want to know what's going to happen in this game, leading up to the draft. What's going to happen in the draft? Well, of course, the next big thing is like, what is the 53-man roster going to be? And that's like, we're way far away from that. That's months of all kinds of things are going to happen before that. But that, for me at least, that's like the next thing, Yeah. So the superlative best next thing is that Ken Ingalls posted his like initial guess at the 53-man roster. And I need to make sure I'm totally being fair to Ken here because he called it his. He said, I'm just going to read his tweet. He said, with the draft complete, here's my way too early gut reaction. Injuries don't exist. The roster isn't even full. They haven't practiced yet version of what the Packers' initial 53-man roster for the 2023 season is. I love that he put all those like caveats in there.
Right.
But Ken he's got a real knack for this. Apart from just his prowess with an interest in the salary cap. When we compare like the 53-man roster predictions, he's always one of the better ones in it in terms of his predictions. So I want to read through all of the names here, but it's kind of like terrible podcasting. So I'll just say, again, check out the links, folks. Check out his prediction. I will say that, based on all the caveats there, how little we know about what we can go on with this. I feel like his prediction is really strong, but I think part of the thing about it that makes it strong is that, he's not leaning too hard on like the newer players because we just don't really know if they're going to show out in camp or whatever.
Right.
But it's for like a first draft. Spectacular. Really, really nice stuff there.
Who is he did he leave the current number 2 QB, backup QB at that, or did he put the Penn State guy in?
Oh, let me see here. Let me pull this back up. For the quarterback, he has Sean Clifford in as the second roster quarterback instead of Danny Etling.
That's a possibility. Yep.
Yeah, could be.
Yep.
If you want to shoot another question at me about his prediction, I can answer another one or two if you want. If you have any others that are pressing.
Okay, so who does he have as the O-line then?
Okay, so the starting O-line he has is left to right. He has David Bakhtiari, Elton Jenkins, Josh Myers, John Runyon, and Yash Nyman. And that's what I would put too.
Yeah.
He has Zach Tom as the backup left tackle, which I think is pretty smart.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and after hearing from Kyle, I feel a little better about the O-line too. I just thought they were looking for, and then they didn't get any, and I'm like, oh, so I got panicky.
I mean, I took it as like, the idea was that it would be smart to get some depth in the O-line. But we have a good amount of depth as it is. Like, it might not be like spectacular depth, but like, I mean, we're in a good place with it,
Right. Probably one of those, if there was somebody really good, they would have taken them, but they tend to go with the best person that is on the board, regardless of position, unless it's something really dire. Yeah. I like it.
All right. And all right, so my third one then, Don. My third and final superlative for this week is best interview. And I actually listened to this while I was making dinner tonight, so this was fresh for me. This week, this was really cool. John Meerdink interviewed Kent Lee Platt, who's the guy who like invented RAS, the relative athletic score.
Oh, cool.
At MathBomb on Twitter. And so because like there's this thing that we all talk about and talking about like the draft stuff, the RAS score, right? That's redundant, the relative athletic score. And to the point where even like NFL teams don't use it. And that was one of the questions that John asked him, was like, do you think they use it? He's like, no, they don't. They have like other things they do that are like more advanced than what we do, and they have access to data and testing that we don't have. But like in terms of what we can, what available data there is to us, this is like a pretty good, aggregator. But just hearing, the guy who made it, the guy who maintains it, the guy who has his head in it all the time, hearing his perspective on some of the things, like cleared up a lot for me. Was super fascinating. Just to hear from the guy who made the thing. I think a lot of people, if they take the time to listen to it, and man, you should, because it was really good. I think you'll be like, I think anybody would be surprised at some of the answers that Kent gave to the questions that John was asking. And one of the most fascinating things I've listened to, I would say, in terms of interviews, like in a while, actually. So highly recommend that one.
Is he like a data analyst, or what's his?
Good question. Yeah, no, I think yes. He said what his job had been with the military, and it was something that sounded very much like data, like heavy data kind of stuff. And I can't think what it was now exactly. Right. I wish I had that on the top of my brain, but it sounds like he lives in data world, like all day, every day. He's talking about how like at work, one of the things that he prides himself on is being able to like be lazier than everybody else, by which he meant like find ways to automate everything, so that like, make things so that you don't have to have a person going in and doing it. Just automate it. Man, I was like, yeah, man, I appreciate that, because I try to think that way too in my own work. What things can we make so that I can be, working smarter instead of harder? Yeah,
me too. Or more creatively. For me, it's, what can I do better, more efficiently, so that I can be even more creative?
Yeah. So you can have your space, take up more of your bandwidth in your space with the creativity and the things that aren't just like the drudge work. Totally.
Yeah, not this is the same formula over and over. Why am I doing this crap? One thing I should say as a superlative, I forgot, is just in general, the national media gets 5 stars this week for getting on board that the Packers are actually a very good organization who knows what they're doing. Because there's so many. I was blown away, and maybe that's why I didn't listen to as much of our Packer content. I mean, I did listen to quite a bit, but there was so much national sports media praising the Packers draft, and it's like, well, sure, because we got 13 picks, but it was beyond that. It was definitely praise for Gutekunst and a real sense of optimism for the team, even from some people that are generally haters of the Packers. So I was kind of like, well, that's interesting. They probably just all had to like do their moments so they can go back to hating next week or something. But I was like, what is going on here? Did I just like wake up in a new world? Everybody thinks the Packers are great. I got a little sarcastic on one. I left a comment. I'm not going to name who it is, but we know some of the haters, right? And I was like, yeah, it's almost as if the Packers are a 5-star organization that knows what they're doing. I got some likes on that. But I'm wondering if it's just, well, naturally we got 13 picks, so it's like, wow, a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also what we did with the picks. And I think the national media was about that too. They weren't just, they weren't just.
Sorry. A lot of good value, a lot of, high smart upside moves. Guys for sure.
Really moves. Smart, wily moves. And then the fact that next year is going to be almost as great. It's just really exciting.
It is. I agree.
It's exciting. It's a new, the draft is great because it's spring. Mm-hmm. It's all this hope for these players who worked so hard, and then it's in the case of the Green Bay Packers, who we love so much. It's a new quarterback who's at QB1. It's a lot of young players, so we have a fairly young coach, although he's not so young that we don't know what's going to happen. I am so excited to see what the LaFleur offense really does look like. I hope we get to see it. Finally. And I hope it's everything we think it should be.
Yeah. I mean, between the wide receivers they picked up last year, the tight ends and wide receivers from this year, we have the chance to see like a young offense like grow and develop together. And like I was saying when Kyle was still on with us, like for me, it's like this idea is like, this year is like the growing year, like the new quarterback with the new receivers, the new tight ends, like all kind of growing together so in the 2024 season, that's when it can really hit and really gel and really be amazing. So it'll be like, more losses than we're used to probably this year, but the future, I think it looks very, very promising, very promising.
Yeah. And I think compared to last year, it's like 8 and 9 or whatever it was. It's anything. I think it's going to be losses for me are going to be easier to take. Yeah. Right.
Yes.
Because it's like, okay, it's a young team. They're not used to playing together. New quarterback, all that. It wasn't easy to take last year. It was unacceptable last year, because we were like 13-3, 13-4, and then what? 8 and 9 with the same team. What is happening here? Something wasn't right there. So
when like having the ability to actually manage our expectations in a different way entirely, I think is going to lead to just like a much more enjoyable time on the whole, because you probably would agree with me on this, Don, like watching the games, the last, I don't know, many years for the Packers was stressful because like there I don't want to say there's an expectation, but like almost an expectation that they're going to make it to the Super Bowl and potentially win it. And so like anytime that it looked like they might not win a game, it was like, like nerve wracking, anxiety inducing. And like, so that also made like the wins all that more exciting, and especially if it's a come from behind thing, like it's exhilarating. But this year I'm not going into it, thinking like we need to win the division and we need to, do well in the playoffs and get to the Super Bowl. It's gonna be like, no, we just need to like grow and develop. And it's gonna be really cool to see that happen. So just kind of changing our expectations, I think is so important.
I say that, and I think that's what my expectations are, but I'm like, we could still win. Wouldn't it be great if this young team just went all the way and
that'd be improbable.
Knocked out the Chiefs. I know it's not probable, but hey, even the idea that the Packers can't possibly have another Hall of Fame quarterback. It's like, yes, they can.
They could. No, I'm on board the hype train or the early hype train. Absolutely.
Yes. I think so. That's one thing they know how to do. Evidently. Really well. Yeah. So very cool. Very cool. Did you catch any of the national media or did you?
Oh yeah. I was listening to, athletic football show with Robert Mays and often Nate Tice and other folks that have I always listen to Mina Kime show with Lenny and the race guest she has every week. So like those are my two main ones I go to for national stuff. But I'll pay attention to what other people putting on Twitter, whether it's like clips, especially like your Ian Rappaports and Adam Schefter's, stuff like that. So I feel like I wouldn't say I pay like a lot of attention to the national stuff, but I definitely do try to keep at least a finger on the pulse of a lot of that.
Yeah. Well, I got a lot of that in my feed on YouTube, and I'm like, what are they going to say? So I just out of curiosity clicked a little more this week. Like, oh, this is kind of nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really nice. All right, Maddie, any final thoughts before we wrap up tonight?
No, I guess just the one thing I did say before is like so much of the content that's coming out, that came out this last week, that's going to be coming out for the next couple of weeks, is stuff that can sustain us throughout the summer, because of course eventually the well will run dry for a couple of weeks here and there. So just remember, you can always go back to check out some of the stuff we've talked about and some of the just all the player profiles and deep dives and stuff like that are coming out. So it's kind of like store it up now like a camel so that you're ready when the desert when we get to the desert. So other than that,
I can't wait to see some of the video from training camps and things like that coming out.
So exciting. I know, right?
It's so exciting. And it's so exciting not having to worry about where our quarterback is and if they're going to show up for practice or not. I mean, it's
if he's going to go and say something weird on McAfee and
who cares? Like, I'm just it's so freeing. It's just wonderful.
It is. Oh, it so is. I know. No more Rogers watch. None of that.
Oh no, it's lovely. And Jordan got his nice little contract. They worked it out. Jordan Love. I mean, yep. So that's not a worry.
It gives him a chance to be really awesome this year and show them that he deserves a longer deal. So putting a player like him in a prove it spot, all for it. For it. Let him prove it. He's going to do it.
Got to be a lot of pressure, especially now with all these extra tools. He's going to be like, oh my gosh. But he seems pretty confident. He seems pretty.
Very calm.
A hard-working quarterback too, right?
Yes. That's the vibe I get for sure.
Yeah, I like that.
All right. Well, we sound like a bunch of homers because we are. So
we are. We're just giddy right now. It's opening all our presents that we just got.
Exactly. Soaring off that high for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Dawn. Should I bring it home?
Let's bring her home, Maddie.
All right. Well, friends, make sure you're following our guest on Twitter. Again, that was Kyle Fellows. His at is at Packer_pundit. So PUNDIT. Of course, you know how to spell Packer, I imagine. And of course, you'll find links in our show description for everyone who mentioned. So please check it out. Whether you're a super fan or a content creator, we'd love to have a chance to interview you. So if you're a subscriber, our DMs are open at Hey Willip on all the social platforms. We'd love to hear from you or someone you'd like to nominate to be a guest on our podcast this year. And folks, when you subscribe to our podcast, you help us keep spreading the love in our community. And the best way to help this podcast grow is by sharing it with your friends and family.
Yes, Maddie, that's right. Because we love you. We're so glad to know you, to be fans of you, and to have the luxury of being fans of the most storied team in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
We appreciate your support, your subscriptions, and sharing our pod. And we look forward to seeing you next week on
Hey, we like your pod.
Football in general comes down to discipline and people owning their roles. And when you aren't disciplined or you go outside the scheme, bad stuff happens.